titles that I go by. So let's get started. So my name is Bruce Petrie. Most of you know me. Most of you don't know me. By generalist, I started off as a SCM and have been to DevOps roles for the past almost 18 years. Very passionate about automation, love automation, and love to automate the tedious and mundane so that I can do amazing things on the side there. Anyway, in this here we have Datical representatives, which is the tool I'm going to talk about today. The CTO to Datical, Reeves.
Hey guys.
I'm Tina Hirsch.
Sales representative, right? For Texas, right?
So I pretty much will cover with the teammates at Texas to Florida. Texas. But I wanted to get up here and make a face-to-face introduction, and maybe we were available for Q&A, and really appreciate talking about database automation.
Right.
Your experience.
So we have a PowerPoint slide here. It's very short, only 8 slides. Lots to talk about, and then we're going to have a demo towards the end. How we, at the time, Fidelity, how we use Datical in a CI/CD process through Jenkins. And
now muted.
Sorry about that. So let's in here. I'm currently at Southwest, but while I was there at, or prior to me getting there, there was, we wanted to take on base migrations or automation. The same do code where we have cycles, release cycles. We want able to be agile in a way that we want testing, developing, and not throw things over the wall to the DBAs like we usually do, and then it goes back and forth. No, you need to do it this way, that way. Various way of integrating things with the code. So one of the things that we did at Fidelity was that they wanted to do a proof of concept, and do these proof of concepts at Fidelity. They kind of do like a road show where they seek out advice from key people, subject matter experts, or even users within the company, and with that consensus. So I think they started off with DB Maestro, and then they got into Datical, and finally, a year ago, they finalized on Datical. Let's see here. So we were looking for ways of maturing the CD process. So typically, when we do code development, we start to build it, test it, go through the cycle, compile it, some form of binary that you push out to an environment. That's hard to do from experience to databases. You have a script, SQL, schema, or something that it's not normalized in a way that or jar or some binary you build, store, and then put in a system of record and push various environments. So it's hard to do in the same way for the data SQL files. So and it's very hard to do and keep that cycle kind of clean, because sometimes there's manual process in between these, depending on the state of those databases in those environments. It's one owned by the development team. Then higher environments are owned by database teams, DBAs, and maybe it's not the same DBAs that do the production releases. And so there's differences in there, and you run into very and factoring and issues and rework. So there's a lot of process going into this, and that makes it work. You don't know what current state. You have to go ask somebody, the person that knows about the information or where to find that information or system of record. It's very consuming, not very easy. Usually, if there's a database involved in an application, usually the database is holding up the release into certain environments. Usually they have the code ready. They have to wait on the DBA to, pass down the application, go in there, and then go and DBA goes run his thing, and then they can then deploy it. It's so automated orchestration of doing these things. And like it's very time-consuming, and for one, let alone the whole environment from dev to QA. So, like I said, our people proved that Datical was a vendor of choice for us. Their vision is that simplify the process. Just code day to day. On it, that same process for the database. We want to be a good tool and a good process for the database change management. So one of the things that we found out about Datical is that it's not intrusive. You are day-to-day tools, processes that already had. There was no major refactoring of tools or anything of that nature. We or SVN, didn't matter control we used, it worked. We didn't have to change that. Same with Jenkins, and also we use deploy IBM deploy for the deployment for some higher environments, and then some applications use it throughout all the environments. In addition to which tools were very seamless and not intrusive at all. So it's very easy, less intrusive, and because that was very seamless, we were able to leverage source code. Like I said, for us was SVN Git, and the CI side it was Jenkins. That we asked to shift left, so to speak, and shifting left means that we find any issues before we even deploy them to any environment. Basically, development teams were able to model the data sets or changes locally on their machines, and then deploy them or run some forecast, basically, in memory, and see what the differences are before they actually change anything on the database. Very easy to see what's getting changed without actually doing any changes. Because that fewer bugs escaped sort of out from the dev environment to any higher environments. Reduce time for the development teams and the DBAs. So it offloaded some of the work that the DBAs have proofread any scheme changes or data set changes and things like that. So the win-win for both development and the DBA side. Like much faster and safer. Things that it provided to us, we were able to store credentials in a good way on the files, and without we onboarded these projects. Our team, the DevOps team, were there to onboard these projects, and when we were onboarded and set up the rules and all these other things, all we had to do was source control it, side by side with their code base, and they took off from that. We did a couple high-level trainings, and they took on there. We were sub-experts for certain things, and they took up the rest, and then we continue on doing that for the rest of the we belong to. All right, so let's go. This is all right. So Datical approaches agile. The tool itself is highlighting the changes. There's a file system, or a file system, a data sets, change sets, configuration changes that are used to capture data sets. So they can be created or modeled. And when I modeled, there's several ways that you can import data or even use a UI, command line, AIs, but like I said, there's these files and packages them just like we would do a jar, an ER file. There's a spec that manages all of that, whether you're using it through the UI or API, and there's other artifact that goes with that, and makes it to pull these things and create branches from these things as you would with regular code. There's a forecasting functionality and rules engine built into the database engine. Great for the forecasting part is what I talked about, where you can changes in memory or play the changes, see what's going to change even before actually pushing them out to any environment. Data change sets in any environment, or compare them, see what's going to change, provides you with a report. In this report, you see what rules are being violated, if any, or if you did a clean submission of it. Next, the deployment. Like I said, it's integrates with a lot of tools. For the deployment, we use either Jenkins and then pass off the artifacts or the directly to udeploy, and then udeploy has its own components to deploy on the environments or the data or the tags that are used against those. Very seamless to do. All right, it brings visibility to change sets. Like I said, reporting, you know what current state, any environments, any database environments that are out there very easily within minutes. You can see if your current has changed and how does that compare to the other environments down the environments. Integration, like I said, it integrates with a lot of tools, which the next slide will show that. Our agile way of working. That is that support. We work on primarily over 200 databases just for one business unit. And we were in the process of migrating the majority of those while I was there. It's also Microsoft's SQL Server, MySQL, and Postgre are the major products that they support. The integration and architecture here, like I said, It's Eclipse. Anything you put into Eclipse for source control, they support. Like I said, the artifacts can be version controlled. The integration to build side, we have Jenkins, Bamboo. We migrated from Bamboo to Jenkins, and that was seamless. No issues there. And both the enterprise version of Jenkins and the open source. For deployment on our side, we use udeploy for that, but you can also use any change management tools or other applications for deployments. As far as session or accessing the creating the projects, like I said, you have a GUI, Eclipse GUI. You have combined APIs, and also a auditing UI, which we'll cover here towards the end of this presentation. The end itself, how is the Datical DB engine. This interacts with what they call pipeline. You see there in the middle section of the engine. This pipeline is your definition of what your integration process goes through, like from dev to integration to UAT or whatever your customer acceptance is, all the way through production if you're going to allow production deployments. Defines that, what those are. And it interacts, so this pipeline interacts as your, what we call the deployment plan, and all with the packages, your SQL, your SQL files, your code, your data, if you're going to have data, and all your rules that are being applied. So that's all interacting there, and of course, it does all these things. It normalizes this data into XML files, and these XML files are translated to SQL and through JDBC driver. There is an agent. It's directly through JDBC drivers directly into databases. If you have questions, yes. So I know demo is going to involve. Like I said, we're going to set or fixed data set. Typically, it's cycle just like you would do with code. You know, you have something to change or create. You run them. In this case, instead of running tests, you have a rules engine, or your one is to how it would behave, put it in memory once you want to test it and see how the changes are provided and see the difference between the environment. If you succeeded or not, based on the rules that you apply and violations, and if you then rinse, repeat until you have green all the way through. And eventually, you would deploy it. That's what we're going to do here. We're going to control it after that it's good. So you don't have to deploy it to an environment to know that, because the rules engine and the memory comparisons there will view that information. You commit it. Once you commit it into source control, then the next pipe down would be to higher environments, right? Okay, so we're going to use Jenkins for that. So we started off in your local, either DA or developer, made a change to the data set, and then moving on to the other environments. Yes?
What kind of run rules are there? Can you give some examples of the sort of rules it checks?
For instance, you have rules like certain columns, widths, or column names, things like making sure you have a JIRA ticket inside the commit or in the comment, where you can correlate the change set to some of record. Yes?
My personal
So the question was, what rules can we apply? The rules that govern, they're more for governance or best practices. So decide that, and you can put them in. I have yet to do any of that globally, but once you set them up, when we do it for the various applications, we have set that we apply per the DAs and into the project when we source control. Yes, Jeff.
This is really like a linked process, like
Yes.
MD or something.
Yes.
Do they use anything from like the target system catalog to all that?
Yeah, it could do, there's pre-forecast, forecast, and post. It's basically look at like Jira ticket stuff, comments. There's one that kind of looks at each individual change. And then there's one that says, okay, now that's applied, what's it going to do to the data?
Right.
And that's all without making changes.
So the question was, how does it apply, right?
If the rules were just simple static style, or if there was use of target systems catalog to provide rules related to that particular deployment.
No, it's beyond cross, and like you mentioned,
Yes.
Oh, yes. And there's pre, post, and middle. We're going to demo some of that. Where I am. House in my pocket. Again, and reading these things in various environments where, like I said, in here we're showcasing the CIDB, where you would do your continuous integration. The customer acceptance side through UAT, and the same thing for staging database. And here different, and we treated it, we had Fidelity treated the same thing here, where there's some change management system or process in place that prevents the DBAs or the application teams being able to put changes or data changes, sets or whatever to production. So I'm going to miss this here. And go to our environment. I guess it named out.
Is there additional questions you want to address?
Right.
Does architecture make sense?
The application in the database,
Right. So the way we did at Fidelity, we create Datical folder at the whatever code base is being used. Sometimes it was not part of an application. Sometimes it's a process like backing up the database or backing up the schema. Some of that information we would use Datical Jenkins through Datical and udeploy or applying change sets. So there was no application per se. It might be standalone. So there's nothing that you have to put it in with application. But ideally, you want when they branch.
If it's separate, you definitely want to make sure that your whole pipeline is coordinating the deployment database.
Right, with the application. And so if it is required, then yes, we always 90% of the time we put it with the application. So. Go here, but it's basically either SQL files, depending on how you're going to do it, or if you're going to normalize the data using the UI, it's XML. And it's to doing that because then, if I'm correct, we're on our side. We have yet to do this on our side, but if you normalize the data enough or using through there, you could have one base being mile and another database behind the scenes, and because the data or the schema or the SQL is normalized through the UI, when it gets to another environment, it translates that automatically.
What is the product?
Right.
Should have been coded in some language, whatever the,
The product itself, it's a Eclipse IDE or Java behind the scenes with some scenes or
does it require like a database for its metadata to be working, or how?
no database engine. It's just the effects of which I mentioned, which is the rules, the L's where you're normalizing the data. Hang on, okay.
Yeah, it's not a multi-tenant. Okay, it's like a one instance. I would need to then deploy to each of the developers' mission to make it operational for this. Oh, for sure.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
what I'm trying to get. Yeah. Devs get the Eclipse one, you put the command line installer on the Jenkins box, and you're off to the races.
So launching Datical. Like I said, it's a Eclipse-based UI. All right, so let's bring this back to was basically a project, and in this case, turn away here. We have a database project here. This is the actual code base here. We have logs, reports, resources, rules, snaps, and the most important thing here is the change log. Here we have what we call the deployment, and we start from right, and this up on the top here we have Dev 01, the CID, CID. All right, the UAT instance, the state, and the prod. All right, so when we start these things here, you want to know the known state of your databases across your pipeline here. So,
Project, there's a whole bunch of artifacts that
yes,
constitute the project.
yes. So in here there are chain sets, or where you analyze your chain sets, right? I'll talk about those then. All right. So like I said, we go into a project. We have a set of pipelines that we want our data to be delivered. These for us, that depends on the deployment plan for how they want their schemas to be migrated or pushed out to several environments. So like I said, we onboard these things. We get information from the DBAs. And the little part right here is where we put all the information, you know, with the drivers, the host name, schema, port, credentials, and stuff like that, all in here. Well, some other things like the labels, when we get to that point, that are applied here also. Like I said, the first thing you want to know, what's the known state of your pipeline or your databases. So the first thing we do is create change, right? You're in because you want to change something or modify something, right?
Is this right here by developer, or is this more by an admin or an line?
It's not role-based. So for us, we at the both at DB level and also in the development team level. So
Developer has a view into each of these environments, including the production environment?
Not production, no.
Okay.
No, so it's filtered, so they don't have a view into it. They can't push into it. And we take care of that is by applying certain labels, and they don't see the credentials in here. They're, like I said, they're encrypted. But we get this information from the DAs, and we get buy-in from DBAs to make sure that they only have access access to that.
And then all this information here, everything is stored as project files in the source control along with the application.
Yes. All right. So, and in this case, is in the back end of this is a Git repository where the project is being pointed to. Like I said, the first thing we want to do is create a change set, right? So the first thing we do here is itself on the change log right here. It's kind of for me. I don't know how you guys see it.
This is blurry.
Yeah.
Throw the resolution of the Windows,
For the window itself?
the Windows desktop you're on.
Yeah, it's the RDP. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can, or maybe,
Display the,
yeah. There we go. One of these. Alt. And trying to right-click functionality on a desktop.
should be two finger click. Two click fingers at the same time.
There you go. Something new today. Yeah. No. So hang on, I have to log out of the RDP. Get out. There we go. There's a resolution here.
I think that'd be smaller. I think it'd be
Native,
big.
it should
Oh,
be.
okay. Yeah. That's what I was looking
I think it saves it automatically.
for. Yeah. Okay. Open. Now I have scroll bars.
We'll just get rid of them.
Get away. There we go. Better?
Everything inside of it.
Whatever.
Well,
All right, sorry about that. So like I said, the first thing we want to do is create a change set, right? So again,
It's less recording, so.
two finger there, so you select, like I said, the change set here. And it's kind of like a wizard, all right? The simple way you can do this is through the wizard. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to create a new column, all right? So add a column here, select that, click next. Sorry, I'm playing a script here just so that I don't deviate. We're going to give it a column name, and here I'm just going to say column. Column here. I'm just going to say text, all right? Default value I'm going to leave alone, but here I'm going to give it a default value here, and you'll see the reason why here. I'm going to leave marks alone because, like I said, there's some bases or rules that are being applied here, and we're going to force those to come up, all right? I'm going to click on, yeah, select the table, in this case, assets. And like I said, if you don't fill out everything down here, it won't let you continue. All right? Telling me what wedges I'm trying to do here, basically add a column, and then here is the details of the change set, all right? Now we'll finalize these. All we have to do is click click on finalize here. Now, but when you're committing something, it needs information from you. It possibly an ID of a JIRA ticket or whatever your ticketing system so that you can correlate the change to some system of record. Right? And this I'm just gonna give a put my initial here for the time being. So I guess make everything here. We got all right. Click on here. Oh, before I forget, we're talking about labels. Labels is kind of like a filter that you apply. Let's say you had a release, and they're a sprint number or whatever you call your releases. You can use labels and then apply these things. And then these labels, you can, on the plugin on the Jenkins side or through an API or a command line, whatever you're using, you can filter them or enforce certain rules for this not to be propagated or to be propagated, depending on how you're using them. So it's not like a filter to allow you to do things. This is one of the ways that where we enforce not pushing out to production also. Only labels that apply to that goes into production, never mind that you have to have the right access to push them out there, but it also enforces that if you don't have that label, you have access, it's not going to go through.
Let me add labels later after it's reached a certain stage of maturity.
You can't afterwards. You would have to go back into the UI and apply them. If you've already applied the change set, I think no way to push them out there.
Typically thinking of every change set eventually making it in production, or is
Yes. Yes, if you're testing and you're applying your testing label, and, your environment only accepts a certain, you're doing all your integrations, and that's a lot of labels you would need to apply. So you have a general label if part of that deployment plan. But I guess you can go back in here and change it. But once you push it into the environments, unless you revert the change and you apply it with the real label, then you would have to change it.
we apply these change sets like first to dead, and then that change set moves forward to the
Yes.
next one, right?
Yes. And we'll do that here in a minute. Yes, there you go. Yeah.
There is another way. I think you were and that is if you put something in, it just kind of hangs out.
Yes.
You know, don't know when it's going to get out. And if the concern, if that's an issue, I would highly recommend taking advantage of branches because you've got checked in to the application code. Like imagine a situation where you would do a hot fix. You've got a release, you bring off the release label, do code checking to release to production. Then you can merge that down into the release branch, the dev branch that's going to get released. That is labeled. But there are some companies, the reason why we add this, some companies that aren't taking full advantage of that. This is kind of a stopgap. Okay. You really want to full with this checked in the application code and doing release sprint and it solves that problem. So information exposed somewhere within the source control repository or surely an internal value to the tool. That can be filed. Each one of those changes. But it's visible within the context of the project file and source control. It's not like exposes like tag on that particular branch.
No, it's into the project or the artifacts within the project. All right, so apply a label here, and the labels are, in this case, it's the current release and the sprint 4. It's kind of fuzzy, but that's what they are right here. So for the labels, I want to apply it to this change sets, moving on over to the assignment column. Click OK. I'm finished here. All right.
You can gel, that would be gel labels, over can't apply the label.
I don't know. Oh, I don't think you can.
You mentioned earlier that you allow certain labels to be able to come through certain gates, right?
Yes.
How are you doing that? Is it just that they don't know what the other label is?
When we create this project for onboarding, and here it says label. And I just added a label to this change set called Sprint and current release. This is how you apply the filter. I created a filter, but it's kind of like version that if these labels apply to this change set, they go to those environments. So they're there. They are. So if you notice when we go to here to this one, it says prod release, and we that. So if we apply that label to that change set.
So it's less of an ACL and more of just a
Yes, definitely right. Right. So now done that, I applied the label, I finalized it. I said we finished that. We're gonna go back to so up here, can I see it? Sure. You guys. I can't see it here.
What are you looking for?
Asterisk up there on the tab, but that'd be wrong. Yeah, I saved the change set, just in case. So, plan back at pen here. So there's tabs down here called Plan, Design, Source, Settings. How is this stored? This is the XML here. So that we created is right here. As you can see, it shows me the author, and the labels applied, the ID. Remember there or the system of record ID is also there. And it also has the data sets change. In this case, it's an add column name assets. Give it a default value of Y and name of the column and the type. So it's in here. All right. That's where you sit there and in the design, your way of visualizing it. If you know you're not afraid or you know how to do an XML, it's much clearer. And here it gives you context sensitive way of doing things. Selecting things here and right clicking on them. Gives you a context menu to do the same thing. So like I said, it's the same thing, add column, table name, and things like that.
Is there a reason why XML was chosen as the markup language for this instead of something like JSON or something like that? Yeah. Yeah, good question. I mean, there's we're built Liquibase. Liquibase does support JSON and this version we're using it actually be very easy for us to switch. But we got a lot of requests. Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely, yeah, comments are immaterial to us.
So you saw where the data sets are stored and how to do it multiple ways depending on what we want to choose to do it. So now we're going to see, we made a change and we want to see how that compares to our databases in the deployment plan. They all turn yellow, which means that this change undeployed change set. That's the status there. So the change that we did, when we did, we don't find it in those, right? Now, the reason why one is that way is, remember, the label that we put in there doesn't apply to this environment. So, because the label we on the data set is not the same that we're looking for in the configuration there. It doesn't care about that. It says it doesn't apply to me, right? So we know the known state. This is the part where you can, up in here, just click a button and see the state and see if it has changed since then. He manually goes on there and changes it compared to your last deployment to there. It will show just like this. Right.
How's it with the snapshots and rollback in the context of really, really large changes? And, you know, if you're changing data or something like that,
Right.
Does it get an actual snapshot of it, or has it preserved the old values?
We don't do that, but experience.
We do not. It is, there's a lot of really, really cool tools out there that do that kind of stuff.
Right.
And for
So at Fidelity, what we've done is we use Delphix. Delphix, what does it gives you a snapshot of production or whatever environment that you want to test against, gives an exact copy, and you can, instead of going to production, you will do a pre-test or pre-prod test against a production snapshot of it. So, and some groups of business, they do that so that even before a week out or whatever, they're testing against the same data. So.
But his question about what there's, this is really just centered around schema.
Probably schema, but if I remember correctly, you can even have data sets inside XML files, spreadsheets, where you convert that into data sets in here. But like I said, we typically don't do that. Like I said, we take snapshots using another product. I think it's small enough, it's okay, but we haven't done that.
Yeah, this really focused on spring application, that relational database. Could you go back to what you were saying?
All right. So, the X version? Yeah. All right. So in this case, this is add a column to the table, to this table name, and we gave that column a default value of Y. Here's the name there, and here's the type of column text.
Now, what about pipeline state? Trying to take a particular change and it was validating if it's available in each of these.
Right. It's seeing what we have locally, the last data set. So up there you see there's more than one, right? So these project and see if there are any changes besides these that have been applied to the various databases. Right. There's a table on each of these databases that has, remember the that I applied, the author, all of that metadata is checking against that, and then actually looking to see if any of the data sets that are bad or changes inside that data set have been applied. If they're not, then that's where it changes here.
The first couple passed, maybe the third one, that column for some reason already existed. Would it be yellow, or would there be some other indication of
If we're applying the same label and the same data set, that means it wasn't applied to the other two.
You know what I'm saying, right?
I think the question was, let's just imagine a world.
Oh,
where
somebody manually went on there.
did it,
Yeah.
and I think Chris is going to show forecast.
Yes.
That was caught that.
That because, like I said, there's a column or a table on there that keeps record of these changes, and I think it shows up as a
something fundamental about that particular instance.
It'll tell you in the forecast that there's something wrong.
So that show up long before you ever got this display.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
That's, yeah, you would never, you don't even have to apply the change onto the database to see that.
Does it automatically handle the if exists things? Remember, we're doing changes to SQL scripts. And all of our C scripts are like for an add column, it's like, if it doesn't exist, add this.
Right.
So if it doesn't exist, it's going to give you a warning.
It's going to tell you. It's going to tell you in the forecast. So what I'm trying to get to, which, yeah. All right. Right. So again, gives you the state. Usually the state of yellow means there's undeployed change set, typically. But if there's hands in the cookie jar, then this would show it also.
That never happens.
No, that never. So I believe here, about that label is not going to be applied to production, all right? So now we're going into forecast, right? So we'll do one at a time here. We're going to go here into to the instance, and we're going to click on the forecast button here. Now, this is doing an in-memory checking of the state. The change set and how to apply to that. Now, it's kind of funny here, right? But the first column here is the ID that I applied or gave. The first one here is saying that the change set should have a comment. You remember big open field? So in this rule, we're trying to enforce that don't get changed and not document it. That's just like in source control. When you commit something, you want some notation of why we're doing it. I mean, at a minimum, an ID or reference. It's saying here, and it's telling you what phase, and this is pre-forecast. So again, that question I was asked when things happen. This one's pre, and that one, the level is a warning. So it's basically hurting anything per se, but it's not to have, basically. It tells you what to do, which is change set does not have a comment. The second one is column added to existing tables should not have a default value set. Rules are you get with A's or best practices and come up with these things so that any junior or DBA, can look at this and say, oops, let me go fix this. So
Where does it fit in?
those are rules right here, this area right here.
There's some kind of language that those are expressed as?
It's just like normal, the same way we were doing them in normalizing the data. You can use UI to do those.
Okay.
All right. Now, once we do that, we tell it, okay, here's the report. Violations has information that we use. What is connecting to all the metadata for that. And there we come in with the set ID, which I provided here, the rule that violated it, phase it was done, and the message. The same thing in that dialog. We're going to change set ID there. Warning. And there you can actually, if you expand this either through here or directly down here, it's going to give you the SQL that you're trying to apply here, which is alter table, asset DB, add with the default of Y. All right?
Does the report have a link back to the change set?
It's, yes, right here. 262.
Just
Linked. It's just, if you notice here, I gave it the ID of 262 here, and this is just referencing.
I'm saying in terms of if you have pages of change sets and trying to find that,
Right.
if there's links or something that directly to you,
Right.
those things.
Yeah. And this, finding out, this is, if you right-click on this, this is HTML. So you can right-click, copy the source, send it to somebody, since the memory, say somebody committed this and you did the forecast, and you're trying to code review with somebody and find a problem, then you can send it to them, they can see all the information there, and then go in and make the changes. All right. Forecast there, now fix this, right? We need to remediate these things, right? So we go back into whichever way you feel comfortable. Can go into the design or into the source.
Can you please show us the rules, like if you API or the CLI, like like an API, for instance, is it very limited? Would you general programming in there, or is it very rigid?
I don't have information for the API here. We're already almost, well, we're an hour and we still haven't gotten into the Jenkins yet. So, afterwards, for me, let's fix the first violation, which is having a comment. And I typically just go in here. If I find something like that, I'll copy and paste comment. And this, sorry, I'm going to add a comment. Fix that from there. And goes inside the change set. Be okay right here. There. And chat. Is that. Notice here that when you change things here, it has an asterisk here, so you have to make sure you save these things.
Basically keep all these sets throughout the entire life of the project, and it's one.
Yes.
So lower.
Like we were talking about, this could be in its own branch, depending on if it's an ever-living branch. You can merge these things. Typically, when it's XML, it shouldn't be too bad. But release cycle depends on what branch you're on, or if your release cycle. If you're base model of releasing and all of that information, but
Even if you merge them, like even if you're following a flow model where you merge it back on master, I mean, if you got all the change sets you did for release, you know, let's say release 4 is the version you're on.
right.
So you've got all the change sets plus release 3 and then release 2 and release 1, right? So, I mean, have thousands of change sets.
Yeah.
So
Then you can't clean them up.
yes.
You have to have them in there. And there's also, you can include
Right.
and tuck them away.
Tuck them away. You can organize them by sprint, or wherever you guys are doing your development. This directory structure can be organized.
Okay.
Even at the file system level, it can be organized.
But it does become a code.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. All right. That's how I fix the comment warning. Now I'm going to fix the default value. Basically, I'm just going to delete them here. And I save it. They detect a change there. And, uh-oh, what's that? Oh, let's get that. Now, so that takes that. It's me. There we go. We go back into the plan, and we're okay, and then I'm gonna force it again, right? Make sure that I'm within compliance, right? And what green, right? Green is good. Amber, no pink or red, right? Very, like I said, this does it all in memory without committing anything to any databases or making any change sets to any remote databases. Now this is right, green is good. And again, you see here, and then you have the details here for the schema itself. There it is, before and after. There's something that you're changing, here's your diffing of the other.
And you mentioned that you can distribute that report.
That report.
Yeah, the thing I really like about that Jenkins integration is that you can also get published.
Yes.
Published, so you can
What do you,
front page.
I will show that.
Click on it. And,
I hope.
I'm sorry, I'm getting that.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah, so we did, we have that, like I said, remediated, now it shows up. Now what I want to do is, I'm happy with this. I want to commit, make it part of the code base, right? So you go back up in here and right click in there, go to team, just like you would do on the, if you it. And for me, it's going to say it's Jira dash 226. That, and if you note in here, the only things that I found was the change set. So anything in the project or anything, these other things, we're going to get ignore to ignore the files. That's why I not selected. And all we do is commit this. And so now, clear now, we want to be able to push these to the other environments. It's allowed to, we're allowed, so to speak, to interact with dev directly, but if you want to, you can even restrict that one. So we're going to go on to the Jenkins side to see how you would do it through Jenkins. Like I said, you can restrict these access and have a tool like Jenkins, or you deploy to do the actual deployments or changes.
So before I do the commit, would I not, if I'm a developer, would I not apply that to the database, do my initial test, make sure that everything is good, and do a commit?
You do that, yes. But in this, for experience and that, but yes, you would. If you have a local databases and want to put that in there, but typically in our company, we don't have local databases because they're so huge and they require integrations with other applications, so to speak, and the data set's so large that every machine.
How would you do in that case? You would commit, or would you?
They have a development database where all of this, or an integration database where they would be doing that. In case it's not the development team that's doing it, it's some QA that would be doing the validation instead of the development team. They would and with DBAs, they would make the change, make sure it's a valid change, check them in, then coordinate with QA once it's on the environment.
Okay. Would it be possible to add the local developers database to that list of different environments? Or that actually has to be static for environments that wherever the base is, has activity to at all times?
Add it local. If you have a, let's say you have a SQL Server or MySQL database, you can add that locally.
I think it's actually local hosts on your system.
All of this is, yeah, it's on a local instance, so it's pointing to locally.
So you set one your database is local host to your local DB.
Yeah, if you have the credentials and everything to connect to it, you input that, make it part of the.
The other quick one, that use case, would a developer, when they're doing this, they go through all of this with their local database and they commit it, and all environments, the UAT and QA and so on, is that then done through Jenkins? Is that the typical way that it be used? Because I'm seeing the purpose for the pushes into all the other databases if that's being done automatically with Jenkins. So I would really see the user using this as for their local commit and changes and stuff like that, commit, and then everything else is done through pipeline.
Right. So what we're going to show is that pipeline on this side, and not a notion of a regular Jenkins pipeline with or what used to be the workflow, the flow. In case you'll see the configuration configuration here once we run it here.
They're able to forecast as well, the pool's not actually freezable or anything.
Yes. In our side, we restrict, in development, the data to be done through Jenkins and deploy. This is our tracking to know where changes are occurring, and because the whole thing is that it went through every environment, the same change set went through every environment, and then there's a change management process for that change to get moved to production.
So how does a sequence change that? Because I had some there like add tables, and then you wanted to add column to it.
Right.
So, you just top to bottom, or? Yeah.
Can you order them?
The UI, the name then. That would be order. Just like, no.
To sort of, cause let's get, for example, let's say you go off on a branch and you work with a bunch of commits.
Okay, and I conversation while this is running,
Okay.
because it'll take a couple minutes to run. All right, and while it's running, I'm going to show you the configuration of this. All right. All right. Go ahead.
I think, well,
Yeah.
So, rebase, the whole set, and turn it into more of a, publishing set.
there are some ways that, use case for labels, you know, like, you could say, look, guys, I kind of got off the rails here, we need to back on, this change that needs to run first before all the other stuff, or this group of changes. So let's do this first, we were on a branch, we came in, let's get this taken care of, or let last.
Because you might have a case where the developer does want to set up a database, and he wants to run all these steps to get it current.
Right.
So there would have to be some known dependencies between those change sets.
That's true, and that,
Tool was really good, you provided some mechanisms that people could make use of stuff like that.
it's real dumb, with the wording. It's
Right.
just straight, because, you know, databases don't handle branches really well. So, it's something like that, where you had to do some strange and unnatural things. We provide mechanisms to get you back on course, but, it would be a challenge. So, man, those are edge cases.
Yeah.
It's real.
That's what's in the change.
They're our customers.
If you're not the changes, you know, I mean, if you're, because it's a tool, you're figuring out, to get here to here, here's the kind of things I've got to do today. You're figuring out, you know, this thing added a column, but we know how to construct the alter table add column. Well, if it goes back and you're dropping the column, well, alter table drop column.
Yes.
I mean, usually you do think of it in terms of like get rid of a bunch of patches, even neighbors, so that when they're looking at the directory, it's all in order the way it came out.
Yeah, and that's the ordering of the file. That's what we're
I'm thinking of cutting by hand an application before creating upgrade files, or upgrade SQL files, and then making the tool smart and say, figure out what version of schema is in the database, and then run all the, whatever current version of the application is, run all the ones that are in between it to that version.
Well,
Slightly different use case with the same problem.
with the database, that can get you, I don't know, that makes me nervous, because I've seen situations where you do delta, and you say, oh, it looks like we've dropped a column, added a column. When in reality, you just renamed it. And if you drop the column, then added it, you would lose data. That kind of like, roll it all up, makes me nervous.
Operation, even when you had to leave it. I don't think, rename versus job.
Oh, no, I was just speaking to the idea of taking a bunch of changes and collapsing them into smaller ones to make it more efficient.
Gets back to your notion of, if you can sequence them, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
It's true.
Yeah, sequence them on,
You will go on the sequencing, not comfortable doing the sequence side of the code itself.
depends on development shop.
I thought we floated the note.
If you sequence them later, why can't absolutely say anything for
You could do have a time step when they're ready.
Yes, and that goes into the table, or the system of record on the table.
Like, well, I think one of this is, like, that's something, that should be super fair.
Yeah, I think
The
ordinance
biggest
is
deal would
important.
be if you are branching with this, you can't really trust Git to merge it correctly.
Right.
No.
Any version control system with XML sucks.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
so you can watch what you're doing when you merge.
The ordering in XML is the killer.
Integration with Jenkins is so key, because if there's a bad forecast or just a badly formed XML file, it'll break.
Yes.
So that might be a better reason, rather than force it on ordering, to actually look at the timestamp and use that as your sequencing.
Yeah.
To go in any order. My concern is, like you say, if you can include files and you can hire people to organize that, I really know what the sequence is. Yeah.
And it's the wrong one, most of your times.
So,
What is Jenkins job doing?
all right, so here you see that we're getting the asset DB out of source control. It's a local Git repository, using the file well. All we do here is there's a DB plugin that's available. Like any other plugins we have out there for Jenkins. So we'll start saying one of the key things here is that here are your actions. So one plugin, but you can add multiple steps, build steps for each thing that you want to do. In this case, the first thing we want to do is get that the drivers that we're going to use on the system, right? So drivers, you can connect to the databases, right? So this step here is basically and in this case, the only thing you have to do here is check the drivers. The next thing after we do that, and now mind you, remember this is a pipe, but in this case we're just doing it in order steps, right?
They have Jenkins support?
I did, but we were doing it. Fidelity was we were getting away from plugins and using the command line and the API. So that's the good about this.
Are you on the plugin, or is this an open source contributed thing?
Both.
Well, okay, is it open source but contributed by you guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Are you guys working on Jenkins Pipeline DSL support for it?
Not right now.
Okay.
We don't have customers asking for it, but it's .com/Datical. You'll see Datical DB for Jenkins.
Cool.
But yeah, we don't have any customers asking for that right now.
It's very new. So.
But we'll put it, I mean, and you'll see my name all over it, so. Send me a message, man.
All right. So we did check drivers, right? So the next thing we're doing here is status. In this case, here we're applying the label. Again, this is where you filter the job per the label. Now you get this a separate. Yes, you have a separate job for them. Make it a parameter and feed the label through it. And you can pass multiple labels through it. So I can the status of the CIDB, then forecast, just did locally through the IDB.
So is the purpose of running the status to feed into the steps, or is it just there to provide?
So status, any of these things, if they fail, it'll the whole build, any of these. That's to do a before and do something and do an after, so you get a status.
So you can see it.
Yes,
But what does it mean to fail a status?
fail status.
Network connectivity issue.
Yes.
Okay.
Database.
Driver incompatibility. Yep.
So the check driver is just making sure it has it locally.
Mm-hmm.
What you figure, because I guess when you set up your pipeline, you're
It's in the project,
This is an
yes.
Oracle database, this is a MySQL database, so it's checking its all those.
That was me thinking part of log on.
Status that puts it in the log.
Yes.
So it's always.
And also output, yes. So again, we do the same thing for the, then do the status, make sure that it's, so to speak,
That's a UAT.
and then we on to the UAT for the same thing. We do the forecast, we did the drivers already. We're using the same host, so you don't have to do that multiple times, right? Unless testing where the drivers go crazy in between. But you think with the other ones, like I said, that's all it's doing right here. All right, and then we do or post build. This is where all of that, all the statuses and the reports go into the directory, gather all of that, and publish it somewhere.
Which DB talking to, right? So that's the order
Three of 'em.
inside the file.
In here, this is the stage. So all of these actions, all of these 2 actions, 3 is per. So last 2 were for staging. This is the next 3 are for UAT. This one is for CIDB. And the only was that the first step was the check driver. No need that for every database if you're on the same host.
And you can change these with a variable, that at build time, it says, oh, which label do you want to push?
Right. Yes.
Just using the parameters trigger?
Yes. Yes. Feed it there, and like I said, it's not you can use multiples.
Yeah, self-service, you know, I go request your own.
Yep.
Type it in your.
I'm a D. Don't bother me.
I have to break this up into multiple builds for
Right.
each other.
For each other. Yes.
I was gonna
But
say,
then
you have to deploy in all 3 environments at the same time.
all right, looks like, sorry for the crappy out here. But this first part is just saying that it didn't find a Git repository. Ignore that. It's the rest of it, and in here I think we look for the DB. So we do, where's the agent? I think it's Colchin, right? Control find.
Did everybody sign up for the drawing they wanted to?
Here.
Right.
Verbose, but if you look for action, here's for status detail, the same thing we saw in the drop-down menu. You can see here, you can see the server that is doing this against. So DB with the label. And see however many steps we did, that's what it's doing here, and then the output. Right. There is a output of what the change sets, or what's inside the table, the change. Remember a table in there with the change sets applied, system record within the database itself? That's what it's doing here. All right, there's the forecast. The forecast goes and puts creates the HTML file and all the graph in there, and then you gather it for publishing. This one is on, again, the CIDB, the actual forecast. This one deploy for the CIDB. And here's the status details. That's here for the UAT thing. It's different environments, right? And then it gets down to a successful build or automation in this case.
The file, I'm going back to the events of all this, like the file acting upon is that particular XML file. Where you have it. What is the name of the file called?
They set?
Yes, the change set.
Yes.
That's called change set.xml.
Change that, yes.
So over a period of time, right, so I would have multiple people working on a project, right, then you would have multiple check-ins
Yeah.
happen, right? So then how does the change log gets collated as one big change log? Is it going to say that I have multiple change logs here putting it in?
No, you just have one. Same thing, you've got
Yeah.
multiple people working on one job file.
Right.
Somebody's added the method, changing some.
Right, that's the thing, right, so when you go back check into Git, right, so for a given release, everything gets combined.
Yeah.
So it's one log I'm maintaining for that release.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
I promised that I was gonna get Tina back to Austin.
Okay. Yeah.
Got a flight.
Maybe faster to drive.
Might be right. That said, we've got 10 people on the list. Everybody that signed up for the drawing.
To the drawing?
Okay. Chris, would you mind going to random.org?
The
Yeah.
10?
10. See who the low. Who's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be? Number 3 is Eric Small.
Is the host allowed to win?
Look at you.
Wait, that's random.ericsmalling.com.
Oh,
I've got a 14-year-old.
you redirected the CNN while we were doing the demo. Hey. All right. Sorry, man. No, all right. So the last thing we wanted to do was, now that we did those changes, right? We want to, guess what? See the pipeline, right? I think.
Jen only does the CI.
All the way through. I didn't apply, before going into the other one, while we were having the discussion, I didn't apply the.
And that's kind of what I
local
thought a while
change.
ago, the dev should be updated locally
Yes.
by the developer, and then everything
So
else is
all
done
of
by
these
Jen.
things, it depends on how you, who owns databases, and like I said, it depends on the development shop, whether a DBA or in conjunction with the development team, or you know. The last part here is production, right? It's green, right? It is green.
Label.
It's looking for a certain level, in order to do that. So what do? We do, if I recall, I rarely do this. I was at, so typically done by production people, the operations. But basically what you do is apply the label here. So hang on a second.
So change set and do the label.
Connection. It's underneath the asterisk there.
The epic.
Front.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry. There we go.
Well,
To select the change set, in this case, this one, right? Last change set is one that we want to apply the label.
Yours is two.
That's sorry, that's right. There are three things in here. These are filters that are applied to change sets, ones that are deployed already, and the bonehead right there. That's why, like I said, this is typically done by.
that's why you forecast, man.
Huh? Yeah.
Forecast, even if
Yep.
you mess
You need
it
to
up.
unselect that one.
Yeah, and notice where I'm clicking. Okay, over to the side, but anyway, these are filters.
Because it's eclipsed.
Yes. No, it's the UDP.
eclipsed.
UDP. Anyway, so ignored. Remember, we're ignoring this by applying a label. We want this data has a set of labels, and we're intentionally ignoring it so that it doesn't go into production until we're ready, right? So a DB can go in here after requesting a change set gets approved, then he can go in here and modify it and apply the right label so that when the window appears, if you're using deploy, we schedule this to automatically and enter it in Jenkins, or command during a window, a certain individual from that team can deploy it. Depends on that's how we do it at Fidelity. Different ways. But anyway, so you select it, right? I want to add a label. we're looking for the prod release label. And over, click next, finish, and
That might have to change that, right?
yes, the change as you can get a list of labels to apply, and like I said, that depends on what method you want to use.
Get commits after doing this?
That, yes. So you would commit this also. All right. All right. Now we go back to the plan and the forecast. It's saying that now there's a change that can be applied because we label, right? We can go back over here and redeploy it. But say you use a change management system to do this, commit, but we're going to go bypass that. Emergency.
You mentioned that in prod there might be special circumstances where PM or DBA might do that. Is there some way to export to SQL change sets?
You can get it.
SQL statements of what would run in prod?
Oh, you can look at it from the report.
Oh, is it in a?
Yes, if you look at the bottom of the report, remember I mentioned that there's two ways to expand it.
That's
right here,
Okay.
or right here. Towards the bottom gives you the actual right here. Multiple, then it would be in there.
Okay.
Right? And the last thing is the hard deck here. I have
Commercial or is it all commercial?
So they do provide evasion.
Enterprise?
I'm not privy to any of that on the pricing side, how they're available license.
Per seat enterprise or?
Core of the database.
Okay.
Hey, and we got, Tina's got, you guys talked to Tina, her card right here, and also we got these nice printouts on the integration with Jenkins.
The main reason why we use the tool is because of this, like I said, it provided these ROIs for us.
Number 3 right there.
Number 3? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Changes or fixing things before you actually make any changes in the database, that's the key. And then allowing to do that locally, not only locally, but in every development.
Copy it.
Oh, yeah, I put them over there.
Oh, they're over there. Okay.
Yeah. I'll get you one.
Right.
Different projects, how do we integrate it, and the code goes, this guy, right, so the code backs all of this data.
Right, so you have two ways of doing it. Use the same code repository. That's what we advocate so that when you branch, how you want to decide branch or if you're, whatever branching you want to use, you do it in conjunction with the code change, and that code is tied into the data set changes. So that what change for the code that needs to be in sync with the database or the change sets, they're on branch. And that way, when you go and push these things, you would in that side, that's what we do. We get a dependency. So we build something, go out and get that information. We build it, and dependency. If you have a Datical project in your code base, we have a dependency on it to build that also. Either fails, it doesn't get pushed out.
You're saying within the same repository, I could have another folder.
Yeah, that's what we do. We have a folder, Datical or whatever.
I like that one.
Yes, of course, marketing. But Wellington didn't want to standardize anything on that, but
Man, that guy needs to lighten up.
yeah,
Come on, cool.
that's where I learned my stuff. That gets sharp.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So-
So does it,
It's bug fixing.
for what then apply to a database? Is it table in your database?
Yes.
With the change set
So
up?
it requires certain rights to do that. And like I said, we work with the DBAs and say these are the requirements of Datical. These are the credentials need these access in order to do certain things, to put those in there, and we make that part of the boarding. If that we want this done, it has to have certain rights to do.
So is the identified actual change set ID, or is it?
That's key.
Yeah,
That's one.
or do you, and the timestamp probably?
This time, the author, the actual comment that you put in. Remember that big box that was showing up there?
Yeah.
Everything that you put in that box plus some other metadata.
Now, what we'll also do is look at the change and do a check someone.
Yes.
So somebody changes it.
Integrity
Whoa.
check.
Yes.
Whoa, somebody's changed the change set that's already been applied. We're punching out. Something weird has happened here. And that stops people from doing goofy stuff like, oh, I need to add a column. I'm going to go to the change set that created the text. It's like, no, bro.
Yeah. You need, yeah. So like an integrity check. If you change it over there, it'll detect it here. If you change it over here and it's not in sync with over there, it's going to detect it also. So
Much, guys.
Okay.
If you want to reach out to us, yell on Twitter. That's fine. Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for hosting. I appreciate the feedback. Hey,
Take some with you if you want some.
no, I'm good. You want some? Guys, come see us in Austin. So come here. All right? Come do some like Austin, Dallas, Jenkins Meetup. You know,
Guys down there, so I'm sure we're out.
Sharks and Jets thing or something. All right. Hey, thanks, guys. Well, thank you.
Is that it?
that was it, guys. I know it went long for. No, go ahead.
I got one more question for you. So when you say you reduced your hours and database performance duration and all that stuff, compared to what? Were you just using the whole processing or?
Exactly. So all of this validating and error checking, going back and forth between DBAs and development, instead of that, it put the onus of getting right on whoever is the owner, and they can see what's wrong and best practices. Those rules are being applied locally, whether you're a DBA or development. It reduced that. It reduced the rework, and it, like mentioned there, it shifted it left. Whether DBA or a developer, it deals that if it fails, if early, before it made any changes in databases, everything in memory. So
The rollback aspect of it.
the rollback, which it's in the IDE also, when you change that, you can tell it to create a rollback for you. You have a change set, and then with that, there's a rollback that it will create if you select that.
Well, this is about custom rollback, but
A custom means that, like you were talking about, if you do a delete of a column and you get back and you have some data in there, you want to be able to pull in data also, right? Put that back. We can say roll back, simple roll back a change, right? If you're modifying an existing object, right? But if you have data in there that you want to get back, which it's pretty, but I've had people where they put data into a spreadsheet and then or Groovy code behind the scenes in line with this where it massages the side, it massages PL SQL stuff into a normalized way that this guy can receive it.
what's the scope of the rollback in terms of change sets get rolled back?
Default? Yeah, any change set. Since when? No, it's that data set. So that's not a good one, but let's say I had a column and I'm modifying it, right, an existing column. Let's let go not that it would, but I let go that attribute of enforcing the Y by default, right? Default for that column, every row would get a Y into it, right? Say that went to production. But this thing won't let you. And I will factor that after the fact, right? I select it. Well, at that point it's too late. But let's say I was doing it, right? Actually creating that, and when that data set, there's an option in there that says if I'm modifying it to attribute, to say, yes, make this the default attribute be in there with this value, then what happens is rollback would do the converse of that, which is saying remove that attribute that I just applied. Yes,
In the context of the same data?
Yes.
Rollback actually create a new data set that.
So it's tied to it, so they use it. What it'll do is say, hey, here's the ID, the full heuristic of that change set, it references that. So when it goes and say, I want to apply this, in there it'll show that the rollback, that column that is a system of record, which show that it did, I added the attribute, and then the next one, if you did the rollback, it would show that we removed the attribute.
So it's like a get revert, so it's
Yes.
a negation of whatever.
But the record remains in there as saying that you actually did it first and then removed it.
What I was trying to figure out though is you do a forecast,
Mhm.
and let's say there are 5 change sets that haven't been applied. Go to a deploy. Right. If you roll back, is it gonna roll 5? Is it gonna roll, is there a definition of a session for?
When you do a rollback, it gives lists. It gives you, there's a real button there that says, give me a list, and I'll pick what I want to roll back to.
Okay.
And you like that? Or you can say, I want this particular one to be rolled back, which is kind of crazy if you're picking one in the
You have to know whether.
Yes.
Because if you roll back one, then a later one you didn't roll back, depends on.
Exactly. And now you get two options. The one that fits. If you want a selection of like the last 5, then you'll be able to select all 5. I think you a warning if you kind of skip.
It seems like one of the things, I realize that the person responsible already left.
Yeah.
It seems like you need, as part of this exercise of analyzing all these change sets, you need a way to say, some perspective of change sets that all affect a particular table. Or, it'd be knowing the order they were in to give you a way of kind of summarizing what has happened in the history of that table,
Yeah.
and knowing what you can roll back and what you can't roll back.
Yeah, like you do
It's
sort of.
lacking some
And
management.
And we've run into that with them on our side, and they are very proactive. We get his direct number at times, or the development team directly.
Like people point out, just the volume, thousands of change sets.
Yes.
Managing that stuff, they need to group it, have releases or some way not change sets. Again, little filters on that view right there.
Right.
So you could, hey, I want to only see change sets for release 4 or something like that, and some grouping or something like that is really needed on that.
Right.
Potential to do that. It's just
Organized.
Right.
elevation of
Yeah.
innovation.
It takes some get to it, but after a while, it depends on how you develop locally and whether you're DBA savvy.
And the big issue I see is like you guys mentioned before, you could call them and then you roll back. You think about that beforehand. If your database supports snapshots or something, you might want to go to Jenkins and see if there's some new snapshot beforehand, just to save it before you roll the case.
So for we have those because again we use Datical or some script that it's provided us by the development teams, or we that inline so that a rollback in code and database occurs.
Would you typically want to deploy the base before the application update, or vice versa?
Well, depends if it's an application. So typically, right? Typically, bring down the servlet container so that you can make a change to the database, whether you're applying it or rolling back. They want the servlet container shown when you do that.
Absolutely.
Some of it.
Deploying dynamically.
Right.
And I still think it would probably be best just to, change it today so if you get any kind of errors in the application, ignore them, then deploy the application and worry about it afterwards.
I work with ATG, which is the Oracle e-commerce stack. That thing is a behemoth. There's certain orders that you would have to shut down certain things, and there's replications, because one is a cache and the other one is the system of record. No. There, we got a lot of questions, but what I would do was leave the last half for all of these and actually go in there and monkey stuff. But you guys need more on this. Give Eric, he can do something, and if we want to provide some more, I'm sure he'll be willing to let us use the evaluation of this.
Another topic though right now, we are right now using that is slightly different.
Yeah.
Questioning the repeatable migration, but this is working on the tag, the command curriculum.
You don't have to use the tags, by the way. Those are a way of filtering. You don't have to. If you don't filters in there or labels, it doesn't. It's kind of level of enforcement.
Other than if you're not using tags or labels,
Let me hold that for just a second, because there's people wanting to leave. Any here who hasn't put their name on the guest list, you can help me a lot when I do my expense report for the pizza. Just put your name and company, I don't need email.
You already got me in.
I already you.
Yeah.
But that got a lot. And I just want to thank everyone on the phone. So I think there's one guy left on the phone. Sorry we didn't get any Q&A on the phone, but we need to close out of the room.
Yeah.
I want to let you guys know VMware sponsors this. This is their room where I work, we help this consultancy, and we now are starting to hire again for DevOps. So if you are looking for a job doing any of this kind of stuff, grab hard, send me a resume, talk to, we'd love to have you on the team. So thanks. And continue the Q&A. We don't have to leave the room, but I want to get it ready. So thanks for coming, guys.
So, what was it again? Sorry.
Can't have two jobs.
Some of that.